Away from that interview and still sticking with issues of the effects of COVID-19, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, on Monday, the 23rd of March, directed all heads of courts, federal and state judiciaries to suspend court sittings for an initial period of 2 weeks, except in matters that are urgent, essential or time-bound in line with extant laws. The directive was aimed at preventing the spread of the coronavirus and for the protection of judges and members of the staff of the courts. But before that directive came, some courts had already put in place some measures aimed at safeguarding litigants, counsel, and everyone who have business in the courts. Our correspondents monitored some of the courts across the country. Here's the report. The Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja is devoid of its usual hustle and bustle. It appears like most people stayed away following the directives issued last weekend by the Chief Judge of the state to the effect that members of the general public will not be allowed entry into the court premises except for those who have to file urgent matters or applications. At the gate, we observe the security officials screening people and inquiring what business they have before admitting them into the premises. One flaw in the process, however, is that those who were allowed to drive into the court premises did not have their temperature taken. The registry was also full of parties seeking to file court processes and applications with no regard for social distancing. They declined to speak on camera, but most of the people here told us that not all the registrars were on seat and the process was very slow. The situation is a lot better at the nearby Special Offences Court. Apart from screening those walking in, the security officials also screen those in their cars. In line with the directives of the Chief Judge, members of the public who had no direct business in the courtrooms were not admitted.
The condition precedent to entering the court premises that was observed is that first the temperature of the lawyer is taken before access is granted to the court premises. And after that, then we proceed to the courtroom, and there's no condition precedent to entering the courtroom. However, there were fewer people in the courtrooms. All that was just required is just the counsel and the litigants involved in the matter, and not their sympathizers or their family members or relations or friends.
At the State High Court in Igboshere, Lagos Island, court authorities have provided sanitizers and wash-hand basins around the courtrooms. It's, however, a different scenario next door at the Court of Appeal. There are no sanitizers, no screening, and no restrictions. A lawyer who preferred to speak off camera says the justices who sat made sure that only necessary parties were allowed into the proceedings, and they maintained the social distancing in the sitting arrangements. Since last week, the Federal High Court in Lagos has been proactive, and they continued in this manner even this week.
You could see people are being asked to put sanitizers, and then the temperature measure is being used. But there need to be much more cautious. I've seen courts calling cases in batches. The courts in Federal Court are a bit peculiar because of the nature of the small nature of the environment, and then the already congested atmosphere. But I think so far, you can see from the atmosphere, even a few of the courts didn't sit, but those who sat are a bit particularly cautious in their approach, which is, I think, is commendable, and it aligns with the federal government's efforts to curtail this pandemic, as it were.
In Kaduna State, there's also a low turnout. Only litigants and their lawyers are allowed into the courtrooms. Some of the people here do not maintain social distancing, and there's also no provision for wash-hand basins or sanitizers.
If you are talking in terms of that, I have one with me here. Is it not a hand sanitizer? If you talk about the one with respect to the court premises, possibly you direct that to the management. But in respect of my humble self, I have one with me.
I don't think we are more than 50 here. And as you can see, the court is already sitting. What's contrary to the custom of every lawyer going inside and then the matters being mentioned as it is on the cost list, what we have now is if it's your turn, you'll be called in, and then you have your matter, then you go. So that's the reason why lawyers are outside. It's in bit.
In Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, the courts are also deserted. Some senior lawyers say the decision of the Chief Justice of Nigeria to suspend court activities is in the overall interest of the bench, the bar, and the public.
The effort by the Honorable Chief Justice of Nigeria is very commendable and forthright. It's a good foresight and in collaboration with the representation of the Nigeria Bar Association that by now we have to be proactive. So it's a good decision, the right step, because it is only the living that talks about cases.
It is what like a force majeure, an intervention from God, which nobody has control over. Therefore, whatever be the impact on the litigants, on the court, when you put it on the scale vis-a-vis or against the likely negative impact, I think the closure of the court is in the interest of everybody, including all the litigants.
With the directive of the Chief Justice of Nigeria ordering the suspension of court sittings for the next 2 weeks, with the exception of urgent matters, the expectation is that the courts will put the necessary facilities in place in order to check the spread of the coronavirus for all who have business here. Let's now check out a few of the urgent cases that the courts dealt with despite the COVID-19 pandemic.
We begin with the report that the Supreme Court has dismissed the application for judicial review filed by the APC in Zamfara State against Senator Kabiru Marafa and 179 others. In a leading judgment delivered by Justice Inyang Okoro, the Apex Court held that the application is vexatious, frivolous and gross abuse of court process. The court awarded the cost of 2 million naira to be paid by the applicant to the first to the 140th respondent. Justice Okoro further held that the Apex Court lacks jurisdiction to entertain an application seeking a review of its own judgment, as the finality of the judgment of the Supreme Court is sealed and cannot be reviewed under any guise. In a dissenting judgment, Justice Santos Nweze upheld the application of the APC. He insists that it is better to admit an error instead of justifying an error that fails to represent justice. He adds that the Supreme Court can reverse itself. The APC was seeking a review of the Supreme Court judgment which nullified the elections of all the candidates of the APC in Zamfara State in the 2019 general elections. The court had held that the party did not conduct primaries and as such had no candidate. The EFCC has arraigned the former head of service Winifred Oyoita and 2 others before a federal high court in Abuja. The 2 others are Garba Umar and Ubong Efyok. They were arraigned alongside 6 companies before Justice Taiwo over 18 counts of fraud, failure to fully disclose assets and money laundering. They pleaded not guilty to the charges. Justice Taiwo granted them bail following an oral application moved by their counsel. He granted Oyoita bail in the sum of 100 million naira and 2 sureties in like sum. The other defendants were granted bail in the sum of 50 million naira and 2 sureties in like sum. Justice Taiwo said he granted bail to the defendants because of the coronavirus pandemic and their presumption of innocence. We round off with the report that the Lagos State House of Assembly has passed into law a bill empowering security agencies to arrest people who flout directives aimed at stopping the spread of the coronavirus pandemic in the state. Part of the bill recommends that those who flout the coronavirus lockdown directive be jailed for a month or fined 100,000 naira. The bill, titled A Law to Combat and Stop the Spread of the Coronavirus Pandemic in Lagos State and for Connected Purposes, has 25 sections. The bill also empowers Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to spend at least 20 billion naira to combat the pandemic in Lagos.
And that's the program this week. Don't forget that you can watch again this episode of the program and past episodes on our YouTube channel. I'm Shola Sheyeli. Thank you for watching.